TheAnswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Forever Remodeling. Stress-free and high-quality remodeling. View their stunning transformations online at the number 4everremodeling.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Why all the hostility? Why all the hostility from the left for a dozen honky families, Afrikaners from South Africa, who've been allowed to enter the United States as refugees because they are under a legitimate threat of political violence? I mean, Julius Malema, the leader of that paramilitary offshoot of the ANC called EFF. I mean, he's called for the genocide of the Boer, the farmer, in stadiums with throngs, thousands and thousands of people.
Cheering him on, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then he sort of middles and says, well, I'm not calling for white genocide yet, but there will have to be violence to complete the revolution, where there are instances of farmers who have been hurt or murdered. The land is being expropriated by the government. So, I mean, that's like center cut for why we have asylum laws. And yet, this is sort of the tenor of what you're getting. I'm not using one of the officially sanctioned pundits because they were some flunky on the Obama or Biden campaign. This is just a regular sort of middle-aged black woman who has quite a following on TikTok, apparently. She goes under the handle, your favorite corporate auntie. Listen to this.
Good morning. This is for the South Africans who are going to be entering the United States. This is just a public service announcement. I just wanted to make you aware that the black people who were students during apartheid, we're grandmas and grandpas now, and we have the air of Gen Z. Mm-hmm. One more thing. I also want to let you know that our president, he has Secret Service, and you will not. Mm-hmm. I also want to tell you that black people over here are empowered. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. These are just public service announcements. When you get here, sit your ass down and don't touch nothing. Because you don't have Secret Service. Okay. Now have the day you deserve.
Gee, is that some sort of threat? By the way, black people are empowered in South Africa now, too. They're in charge of the government. Huh. It's just this attitude. I've tired of this attitude from the identitarians, and then we're supposed to make these efforts and overtures to cater to these goons. And anybody who advocates violence like that is a goon. I don't care if they're male or female. It's just this antagonism that the race hustlers have infused into, I don't know what percentage, but it's not an inconsequential percentage of the population across the racial divides. I'll give you another example. This black woman commenting on a story we talked about a little bit earlier this week, that 12-foot statue of a nondescript black woman in Times Square that's supposed to be some sort of seminal moment in the history of art. And ironically, listen to her, when ironically the artist himself, who she references, talked about the statue as sort of a unifying piece. That was the part of the message that this piece of art was supposed to send. And yet this is the characterization by a fan of the statue.
They chose us before they put a 12-foot man. That's good. They would have never did that. New York is really lit. I love my city. I love my city. We used to have colonizers and slave owners as statues. On 14th Street, Union Square, and 42nd Street, they had George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. We yanked them bitches down. Now there's George Floyd and that black lady. Love it. Anytime somebody fixed their teeth to say something disrespectful about a black woman, is your statue there? I don't see a statue that look like you there. I'm cool with that statue. That's power.
Why the hostility? For more on this, please be joined by our friend Will Reilly, Associate Professor of Political Science at Kentucky State University, author of Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives Defining America's School Curricula. Will, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, of course. Thanks for having me on.
Why so angry?
Yeah, in terms of this statue thing, I mean, I think the symbols you pick as a society do kind of represent where you are and what you value. And I mean, I think you really saw that in the last comment from sort of that random lady where she says they used to have statues of these evil people that were slave owners and colonizers, like Abraham Lincoln. Leaving aside the historical inaccuracies there is a deep narrative of truth. Like, we used to value the people that built the country. And I think most people, like, I'm a black guy, actually. I think most people understand that there is I think most people understand that there's an element of violence in history when people had different rules. The leaders and warriors of the United States followed the old rules. So did the great Iroquois chiefs. So did the British people we fought, the Turks, so on down the line. But within that era, there were a lot of great people that built the country. And that's why you have a statue of John Lafitte, the French pirate captain or something like that. Now, today, we've moved away from that, and we have kind of statues of nothing. Like, that's not a statue of Harriet Tubman or something. I mean, you guys could name your favorite black female humans. It's just a statue of a random, angry-looking, overweight lady. And that's kind of the point. Like, what we are celebrating right now is kind of the random, angry-looking citizen of the country. And in New York, that person happens to be black. There's actually a deep symbolism to that, like, all banter aside.
Well, and it's also celebrating, and it's reflective in our other mediating institutions, too. You write a lot about K through 12 education and higher education, for that matter, but it's celebration of mediocrity. I mean, it's just it's like eliminating honor courses at the Palo Alto schools.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I mean, right. The goal of presenting what your society values is kind of illustrating and defining what that is. And a lot of people have pointed this out. I mean, I've seen you do it on the air. The conservative commentator Ben Shapiro did it. I just sort of did it. But again, this isn't a statue of a famous or notable person. It's a statue of a random, angry-looking person who's a bit chubby, looks like they're going to go talk to the manager. And right now, that is kind of the ethos of the USA. Like, we are the most powerful country in the world, and we seem kind of embarrassed by it. And we keep constantly talking about all this random loser crap. What would be the best way to remove the giant homeless encampments in our streets without ever mentally harming anyone and so on down the line. And we're now trying to figure out what we can celebrate in this age. And my personal advice would be to just junk all of this fake moral crap and celebrate the best and most accomplished people, because that motivates everyone else. No one wants to see out-of-shape supermodels or something like that, but go 5, 6 NBA basketball players. The goal in life is to compete to see who's the best to some extent, and then promote those things that make you the best at whatever it is that you do.
Yes. Right. I mean, you want to have a statue of a fat black woman. I have it of Aretha Franklin or something. I don't know, but
that's a good choice.
But that's the point. It's sort of this is just like art attacking the meritocracy, another mediating institution attacking sort of the culture that built the nation. And so it's not about black women are mediocre. No, it's about just It's right. Of course not. It's about, exactly what you said. What a society celebrates it begets. And we're celebrating these things that are not worthy of celebration, at least not consistent with how we became that most powerful nation.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to remember, like, black people, you just said, obviously, black women aren't, mediocre at every case or something like that. Of course not. We're not, neither of us is a racist. But black people also aren't magic. Like, there's nothing worth celebrating about just being black. Like, and you shouldn't feel any shame. I understand black power when you're talking about, like, Brother Malcolm. It comes out of it 5 years after segregation or something. But there's no such thing as black person magic. You're not going to take you're not going to build a 12-foot statue of an Irish guy in a wife beater, with a Bulls 1996 championship replica ring on his hand. I mean, that's as Chicagoan as anything. But you're not going to put that downtown. Like, come on. You can just go to Bridgeport and see that guy.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with black people. It's the same thing with Mexicans and Puerto Ricans. They're all just people. So we do need to stop this deification of just random people in certain large groups.
Take that Jordan statue out front of the United Center and put some random Irish guy.
They're the only statues we have, Jordan. Then if you go to Wrigley Field, you have Ernie Banks. And,
well, it's good. They should be there.
Ryan Sandberg, and that's it, because all the other statues have been taken down.
That itself is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. What about to tackle the Afrikaners issue too, and your favorite corporate auntie who basically just like 15 degrees hotter than former Obama administration officials that are populating the desks at CNN and MSNBC, saying more or less the same thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, first of all, I don't really have any I think that this is a total non-story, actually. Like, it just broken down. A group of people from a country that's probably going to have a bloody race war in the next 10 years are getting out ahead of the conflict and are coming in as refugees. They're not even refugees, they're asylum seekers. So on the one level, this doesn't matter at all. I mean, my guess would be that they, and for that matter, black South Africans, would probably acclimate pretty quickly. I mean, these are English-speaking Christian people from a prosperous country. You've seen the pictures of them. They just look like regular families.
Yeah.
So there's no issue there. I think that there's something deep about the reaction to this, though, from the same people that have been claiming, like, every master carpenter from Mexico City is a refugee for the past 10 years. I'll actually say one thing here as a political scientist. There are almost no refugees because there are only 3 wars going on right now. You might correct me on one of these, but it's Ukraine, Russia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Israel, Palestine. For a lot of reasons, we're probably not taking in that many refugees from the Gaza Strip. But beyond that, I don't see a lot of Armenians coming over here with backpacks. Anyone that is claiming they're a refugee from Mexico, Poland, Nigeria, Jamaica, the countries we're getting a lot of people from, is just lying. I mean, so that's the background of the refugee resettlement crisis in the first place. The South Africans strike me as legitimate as everyone else. But the backlash to them kind of illustrates what the goal is here. Like, a lot of people on the left have pretty openly said, we do want to do what you could describe as the quote-unquote great replacement. Like, we would like a more liberal voting, which is the real issue. Probably more non-white, more feminist, which is going to really backlash and hit them, but whatever, electorate. And we're going to let in people that we think support that cause. And when you have a bunch of conservative South Africans, the hysterical reaction illustrates that all of this asylum seeker stuff wasn't really about helping asylum seekers. It was about changes to kind of the demographic profile of the USA. Like, you got a bunch of white Republican guys. Those aren't the refugees we wanted. So you start seeing this hysteria about, no refuge for racist, I think is the term they're going to use, this kind of thing.
You want to hear something crazy? We're learning this morning that the former Sheraton Hotel on Lakeshore Drive, it's in the Hyde Park neighborhood, predominantly black neighborhood. They're now going to join in forces. They're going to have 700 homeless people and illegals in the same building. They're going to live together in harmony. And the residents get no debate on it. There could be countless consequences. I mean, what do you think of that idea?
Oh, I think it's completely insane. Like, when I went to Manhattan recently, and, there is an element of privilege to this, but whatever. Like, you should have privilege if you can afford to stay in the hotel. Like, this is something that's happened with a lot of the luxury hotels. So, like, you'll come in with a bag on a business trip to close a sale or make a speech or something. and you'll be next door to like the deputy minister from Turkey, and then across the street there'll be a crazy guy who throws plates all night. So you literally have done this stunt in several cities where you've taken hundreds of homeless people, bums an older generation would call them, and a lot of illegal immigrants, who are often quite nice people, by the way, like they just don't speak English. And you've put them in these luxury communities. And I mean, my comment would be, like, there's a legitimate cause for complaint if you're in, I think that's now a condo building, as I recall. But if you're an upscale professional, whether you're black or white, and your building, which only has 1,200 units, moves in 700 crazy people, I would imagine that's grounds for a lawsuit, like loss of amenities or something like that. That's an extremely bizarre thing we're doing, as versus tiny houses or just thinning the cops out, rounding up people that are living outside, and throwing them in the Cook County jail, which is what every sane society did until about 10 years ago.
And for something completely different, as I find this so interesting, are you auditioning to do like a Dear Will relationship advice column?
Ooh, that'd be good.
Because I read this.
Actually, I was...
Go ahead.
Go on.
No.
Oh, yeah. Okay, actually, I've been asked to be an advice columnist for an interesting range of periodicals, from Queer Majority to, I think it was Women's Day, after giving some of my basic relationship advice on Twitter, most of which was at the level of you should have a job as a man, or your partner should sometimes want to sleep with you, or there's a real problem.
Very controversial.
Apparently, a lot of this is considered radical in the modern and post-feminist environment.
Well, I was reading some. I do this segment where I talk about why I'm single, and then there's myriad reasons. This is some very good advice that you give. I just was perusing this. For example, don't take dating advice from incels, the involuntarily celibate. That seems sensible. But you give us some of those other nuggets that we could employ for those who are having trouble forging a relationship.
Well, the first one was written as a joke, but is a very serious piece of advice. Like, you actually shouldn't take dating advice from incels or radical feminists. And this is a problem. Like, if you go on Twitter or Facebook, you'll see a lot of the worst advice that I've ever seen. Like the kind of PG-13 comment that I made comes from a lengthy feminist debate thread titled something like, "You have no responsibility to sexually satisfy your partner." The guys do the same stuff. Andrew Tate who's sometimes amusing, but is the obvious example of the guy like driving shirtless in a Bugatti, talking about the way to get women is to be cruel to them.
Oh my gosh.
And I tend to suspect that a lot of these people aren't actually doing that well with members of the opposite sex that they don't have to pay. I mean, like, I looked up Julie Bindel and some of the feminist women behind the debate on their side, and like every profile was like a lesbian political philosopher based in Belgium. I don't think that's who young women should look to for heterosexual dating advice. Similarly for the guys, like, there are pages like incel.is, which literally mean involuntarily celibate. And I don't mean to be like barroom crude, but if you're not getting laid and you're not married, you probably shouldn't be telling men about what women like because you don't know it. It'd be far better to listen to your dad, who kept your mom reasonably happy for 35 years. But I mean, the tips in the article are very simple. I mean, this one, I don't know. I don't know if I can sign this. You should like your partner. I mean, that seems a bit aggressive. I mean, I'm not ready to make that kind of commitment. A lot of unmarried men aren't. I mean, there's actually a decent case for bachelorhood if you're a successful guy, but we're talking about morality here.
Oh, wait. Make the decent case for bachelorhood.
If you're a successful guy. Sounds like Dan Proft, but go on.
Yeah, I need some support.
Well, the case for bachelorhood, if you're a successful guy, is simply that you can, in today's Tinder environment, date several women at once with very little commitment and get most of the benefits of marriage with none of the cost.
That sounds like a hot mess, Wilfred. I mean, women are crazy.
Yeah, but
They'll
Will Reilly
their
promoting free
claws
love
will come out.
Yeah, so I mean that's the flip side, obviously. Like, there are many great. So I mean, you people ask me to give the obvious reason why successful men stay unmarried, but I advocate for marriage in the article. married men are in general healthier. They live a year and a half longer. They're happier. By the way, married women also report much better sex lives. They report much more comfort with their partner than going out to nightclubs and looking for someone who will treat you well. The big thing also, if we're being blunt about this, the average married woman triples her income. So, women do quite well these days, but if you're an HR manager and you and your boyfriend, a lawyer, decide to commit, you all of a sudden go from, say, the $90,000 a year income range to $270,000, something like that. The suburbs become an option. More kids become an option. So there are very practical reasons that people form these bonds. And so that's, I guess the one thing I'll say seriously is that's kind of the two-part pitch in the article, right? So part one is basically you should like the person you're with. Don't allow yourself to be embarrassed, humiliated, actual abuse is awful. But the second part is, okay, given that you like your partner, what do you have to do to make a marriage work? And I point out that there obviously are norms and expectations in an adult relationship. You're going to have a certain number of, let's say, date nights, weekly or monthly. You are expected, especially as a man, to have a job. There's certain things that you're going to do for each other. You're going to interact with one another's families, and you're going to act like you like them. So there's the two-parter. One, people don't love their mothers-in-law, generally.
This sounds very demanding. Yeah.
Dan's like, I'm not doing it. But get it out of here. But the two-part thing, though, is absolutely serious. You have to pick someone you like. Don't allow, especially for the women, abuse, humiliation, anything like that. But once you do that, you have to recognize that for your partner not to be miserable, you have to do a certain amount of emotional things, physical things. You have to share money. 95% of couples have a joint checking account. And telling people that this isn't true, you have no duty to sexually or emotionally satisfy your partner, that's really, really stupid. And a lot of young people believe this. I will never do anything that I am not enthusiastically, affirmatively, provably geeked out about. And the reality is that in a marriage where you have two kids, that would mean you guys talk to each other 3 times a week. That's not workable.
All right, so for the lovelorn out there, send your letters to Will Reilly, Dear Will, care of Kentucky State University. Will Reilly, Associate Professor, Poli-Sci, and relationship expert at Kentucky State University, author of Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives Defining America's School Curricula. Will, we look forward to having you back for particularly more dating advice.
Sounds good. I'm always glad to help those in search or whatever we
those in need. Yes, right. Very good.
Those in need.
Thanks, Will.
All right, thank you.
Have a good one.
You too, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line. Coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
We'll talk to, John Adams, CEO, founder of Liberty Cigars. We'll talk about who's providing the cigars for our cigar nights next week with Larry